What I speak of is not of myth, but of truth. My tale is that of history, of fact, not exaggeration and fiction. I write this down for I fear it will fade into the waves of time and become twisted in the minds of man. Writing is the purest form of truth when it comes from a heart as pure as water. That is not me, and unfortunately never will be. But hopefully the purest piece of my heart will write this, for it is not my story, but that of those who fought for those who died. I humbly expose their bravery and selflessness for their cause. The tale has begun, but don't let your mind wander, for it might get lost in the images of war. Focus on my words, on what I'm writing, for my information lies within the truth. In the beginning, we were an autocracy, a ghastly form of government where one ruler was in power of everything and had to answer to no one. That ruler was Tsar Nicholas II, and his wife, Tsarina Alexandra, stood by his side. It was thanks to her that a man named Grigory Rasputin held such high power.
I can save your child from the terrible illness.
Save my dying child, and you shall have my gratitude along with the power of the autocracy under your control.
Wait a second, what?
He weaseled his way into the government by saving her son, and in the blink of an eye, his power was set in stone. It was Tsar Nicholas II that signed us into the Triple Entente, the alliance with Great Britain and France. But it wasn't him who pulled us out. No, that was the war that broke the country that I once knew. Before 1905, the most we had to worry about was serfs getting mad about being serfs and pogroms.
Get out! Yeah, stay out!
Fine, I'll find my own place to live.
I wish Russia had pulled it together as much as the Jews did. I mean, they didn't succeed, but at least they didn't resort to assassinating major leaders. Yeah, remember that Rasputin guy? Dead.
Hey, Rasputin! Wakey, wakey.
Who could have seen this one coming?
Unfortunately, in 1905, the powder keg exploded. We got into a war with Japan, later known as the Russo-Japanese War.
Nihon mo tsuyoyo.
Come to me, Buddha.
Our transports broke down, creating a food shortage for the people of Russia, including myself. It was the fateful day, the day people went to the Tsar's Winter Palace to protest, when...
Tsar Nicholas II! Tsar Nicholas!
Who are these guys? I don't like this. Captain?
Fire on my mark.
Are you sure?
Fall in line. Ready? Fire!
Hundreds lay on the ground that day, too much blood to clean up. The streets wailed with cries for fallen loved ones. They cried and cried, cursing the name of Bloody Sunday. Their cries ignited the flame, starting the revolution of 1905. Workers went on strikes and formed unions, while the Zemstvos demanded a parliamentary government. Ethnic groups revolted, roaring in the streets like lions after a kill, and peasants burned the houses of their landowners. From this, the Duma was born, the legislative body of Russia. However, it didn't last long, for the Tsar was not a fan of change and took power from the Duma, returning our government to its former autocracy. The Duma lied in wait for many years, until March 1917, when it decided it was assuming government responsibility, despite the Tsar's attempts to dissolve it. After Rasputin's death in 1916, a series of economic and military disasters ravished our great country. At the start of March 1917, a series of strikes broke out. The streets were littered with people who once went to work not knowing exactly what to do throughout the day. I've never seen someone so conflicted as when I saw a woman walk down the street, her young hungry son's hand wrapped in hers. Still, the woman stood tall. I peered at my window March 8th and saw,
Peace and bread! Come join us! Down with the aristocracy! Fight for what's right!
the March Revolution of 1917. I remember it as if it was yesterday. The inflation of prices since the Great War caused the Duma to jump in and establish the provisional government, which praised the liberal agenda and worked towards a parliamentary democracy. Leon Trotsky led the Petrograd Soviet and was strongly acquainted with Vladimir Lenin. Lenin had already been exiled from Russia once for a plot to overthrow the provisional government, but because of the infection of the Great War, Germany threw him back into our country where he partnered up with Trotsky. I wish I could have been there to know what went down, but somewhere in the midst of their meeting, something was said that got them imprisoned. Unfortunately, it didn't last long, because Alexander Kerensky, the prime minister of the provisional government, avoided a seize of power by releasing the Bolsheviks with Lenin and the Petrograd Soviet with Trotsky from prison. The Bolsheviks were officially renamed the Communists, and they then saw an opportunity to seize power in the name of the Soviets.
Now lead Russia into a prosperous future. There will be peace.
That last promise, the one of peace, Lenin realized it would be harder than anticipated. Still, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk helped.
I surrender the Baltic provinces, Finland, Eastern Poland, and Ukraine to you.
It pleases me that you've come to your senses.
Meanwhile, the Russian Civil War broke out between the Red Army, the Bolsheviks, and the White Army, the Siberian anti-Bolsheviks. It was the Bolshevik against the bourgeoisie, aristocratic liberals, Mensheviks, and socialist revolutionaries, so pretty much everyone else. The Red success was a tribute to Leon Trotsky's military genius and the Bolsheviks convincing the nationalists to join their cause once the Allies joined the White side. The Whites had issues of their own, however.
Men, we have the numbers and the help. We can win this! And once we win, we can return the land to our perfect aristocracy. Yes!
That is a funny joke, comrade. Don't you mean we can reinstate the provisional government? Long live the democracy!
Democracy!
Yeah!
Democracy is the death of our nation and the starvation of our people.
Only to the eyes of a blind man.
The war led to only more bad decisions, with the birth of war communism to ensure supplies for the Red Army.
But we don't have that much. Sucks, doesn't it? Industry, give it.
But the industry in Russia is too weak.
Sounds like a you problem. Peasants, give it.
I wonder what the government will have to say about this.
I'm the government now.
It was a great time to be living, clearly. The Red Army also used what was known as revolutionary terror, ensued by the new secret police known as the Cheka. The screams, I can still hear them when the sun goes down and the lights go off. For that time, once everything was dark, the torches would light up. In the end, the nationalists and the Bolsheviks won, instating Lenin as the new leader. He led until death.
Sir?
Sir,
Sir, are you okay? Sir? He won't wake up.
The paper.
Picture on his desk. It's the new economic policy you've been working on. Peasants can now sell their produce openly, and so can retail stores, as well as small industries with fewer than 20 employees. At least the government still has control of the heavier industries.
You know, it sounds a lot like our old capitalist system.
Pretty bold for a guy who cursed capitalism quite literally until his death.
The events of the Russian Revolution that brought the Soviet Union about had a deep impact on the entire world. It generated a new way of thinking in the economy, society, and the government. The Bolsheviks set out to cure Russia of all its injustices that arose from social class differences. They succeeded in some ways. Even still, the revolution marked the end of a dynasty that had lasted 300 years and concluded with the seizure of power by a small revolutionary group. Although the strength of communism did not last, because it existed at all is proof that the Russian Revolution was a major event of the 20th century. This is where I leave you, with the story of the Russian Revolution, one that ends with the lives of many and the lives of many to come.